Welcome back to Open Line. We are talking about gun laws in Tennessee, and we've expanded points to gun laws across the country. We have with us John Harris of the Tennessee Firearms Association. A lot of calls because a lot of people have a lot of opinions on this topic, of course. Let's go to Lucy. Hello, Lucy.
Hey, y'all.
Hi. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm not going to rush through this, but I've got a couple comments to make. The gentleman that called and, was wondering why they don't work anymore at the prison. I remember the prison farm, and I remember all that stuff. And they don't work anymore. I think the main reason is you have to hire more guards, and the more guards you hire, the more it cuts into your profit margin. But this gentleman, Mr. Harris, that you were talking about 10 years ago, you said that there was something that came up where, if you shot somebody in a bar or something, whatever you were saying, you cited the law or whatnot. This is what I remember. I think it was during Governor Lamar Alexander's reign, they passed a law which was called Class X crimes, automatic 10-year prison sentence if you robbed a convenience store or robbed a bar anywhere where they were serving alcohol is what it was. And I think that was a way to curb people robbing a lot of these places, because I remember when they had the heroin epidemic in the late 60s and through the 70s, and by the end of the 70s it was the cocaine epidemic.
Right.
A lot of people were out robbing people, doing foolish things to get money for dope. And as far as saying that maybe this is an urban problem, there are a lot of people that come in from the rural areas to commit crimes in the big cities. And one last thing.
Okay.
They say that, guns, the more we arm people, the less crime there will be. Well, I think you're right. I think that we ought to arm everybody, and I think we need to arm people down to 12 years of age and give them the right to carry. That's all I wanted to say.
All right, I don't know. You don't support that, right?
Oh, I think we ought to be teaching them by that point.
Okay.
How to listen. They're learning how to drive cars. They got motorcycles and go-karts, and teach them young to respect the firearm. Teach them how to kill a chicken if they have to. You live in East Nashville, you got chickens, and most of them just go snatch eggs, but every now and then you got to fry one.
So I wonder sometimes with those that support, just continuing to expand gun rights, at what point are you satisfied? At what point are you like, okay, would it be at that point where everyone has a gun? Then do you start lowering the age, or I guess then there's education in schools? At what point are you all, the people that are big gun advocates saying, okay, we've got it, we're set?
I think the goal is to get to a point where there are minimal restrictions on people who just want to provide for their own self-defense. They want a gun to carry it for self-defense, just like you used to carry a pocket knife, or a lot of people carry a cell phone now. Let's minimize the restrictions on people who want to define their own boundaries for self-defense purposes. And the guys that are going to commit crimes with them, the goal there is to have swift, certain, and effective punishment to try to minimize recidivism, because that helps everybody, including the gun lobby. And then when it comes to the youth, my goal is to start training them, teaching them as early as possible that firearms are not toys. They're useful items. They're the only item protected by the Constitution. Not even the Bible is protected to personal ownership in the Constitution, but the firearm is. And it's because it's a political tool, not necessarily just a self-defense tool. But teach them as early as possible to respect it, and that it's something that is useful but cannot be abused. And I think we'll be better off.
Let's go to Jeff. Hello, Jeff.
Yeah, hey.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask John to comment on something that the previous caller had just referred to. But there seems to be all this concern about the proliferation of guns being a negative thing. In fact, even just the phrase proliferation of guns indicates negativity. I'd like John to comment on the fact that what statistics show relative to the increase in private and personal citizen gun ownership and crime. And I'll hang up.
Yeah, I mean, clearly in Tennessee, for example, and in most other states, the data exists, at least with respect to retail sales, of what the volume of purchase is. And we mentioned that earlier. In Tennessee, according to TBI data, there's over 300,000 transactions a year for purchases. And that could be more than one gun per purchase, but there's at least 300,000 a year, which tells us that there's a lot of demand for guns. These are not things, you know, like a saw blade that you wear out and you have to replace. The things last centuries.
Right.
So there's a lot of people that still want a lot of guns in this state. And I don't think there's a correlation between that sales volume that's been relatively flat for the last 20 years and some kind of corresponding increase in crime. I think the two are separate. I mean, a criminal, there's enough guns out there already, they're going to be able to get them. And if not, they'll use a bomb of some kind.
If you have access to a gun, does it increase the likelihood of some sort of crime of passion? Everybody has a gun and then they get upset in a road rage thing, and that's the argument you hear. Does it increase the likelihood that somebody turns what would have been a fist fight into a gunfight?
You know, that was an argument that at the time Representative Doug Jackson made back in 95 and 96 when he was serving in the House, and Senator Jackson, a Democrat from Dixon, believed that if we let all these citizens carry guns, we're going to have road rage shootings and we're going to have more violence from people who you just got mad. And within a few years, he became a state senator. And he came to us, and to Ben West in particular, the rep from Donaldson, and he said, I was wrong. Y'all have convinced me that my concerns about what would happen if we let more people carry guns, I was mistaken. He became one of the strongest pro-gun advocates in the General Assembly that we've seen in 20 years, and carried some very strong legislation as a Democrat, which is an anomaly because we mentioned earlier you don't usually cross the line. And he became a very avid shooter. His son became a scholastic professional shooter, competition shooter, and so it happens. But what we have seen is that the segment of the population that can legally possess, which by definition precludes almost all criminals, at least the recidivism.
Right.
They don't commit crimes. There's incidentals, just like you're going to have every now and then a car wreck, you know. There's incidentals. Police officers commit, by population percentage, more crimes with guns than the average citizen.
So you just said there are 300,000 guns being sold in Tennessee every year. What's fueling that? Is it the gun collectors? Is it people buying more than one gun? Is it new people buying guns, you know, every day? Who are buying all those guns?
Well, it's a broad mixture, but I think one thing that drives the volume is people who already are comfortable owning guns, and they're collecting a variety of them, like people would kitchen knives or fishing poles. You know, they're getting different sizes, they're getting different calibers. They think this one's newer and neater, or it's a birthday present or a graduation present or a Christmas present. There's a huge volume of it, and a lot of people, it's you know, a very acceptable gift.
And for the last 8 years, we would hear that everybody was concerned that there was going to be some legislation enacted by President Obama, and so they were buying up guns because they were worried. You know, now you don't have that. So is there still that going on?
Oh yeah, there is. And you see huge, let me tell you, just prior to graduation, there's big sales, volume. Just prior to hunting season, you know, people got to have a new gun for deer season or turkey season or duck season. Just between Thanksgiving and Christmas is a huge volume period. And it's because they're being bought for gifts. And maybe someone buying himself a gift or herself a gift. But, you know, parents give their, you know, teenage children guns frequently.
All right, I think, Bob, are you there?
Yes.
Can you quickly say your question here? We have about a minute, less than a minute.
Yeah, my question was, people that are considered legal to own a gun, do they have to register the gun, or what's the criteria on that?
In Tennessee, no, you do not have to register the firearm in your own name. The one very narrow exception to that are what's called Title II firearms. Those are registered with the federal government, and they're short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, machine guns, destructive devices, and suppressors. But outside of those 5 categories, if you want to own a gun in Tennessee, there's no requirement at all it be registered in your name with anybody.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back right after this.